Welcome back to another episode of Local Mysteries of the Unknown. We're back with another Illinois one.
Hey, we do live here, okay?
We do.
What do you want us to do? Because if you do want us to do one, you could leave a comment.
This one actually came up in the first episode, so I had already had it written down. This is the Manteno State Hospital. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it before.
Is that not Manteno? Manteno?
You might want to Google it, because it comes up so much. I've always said Manteno, but it might be Manteno. I'm sure someone from the area is going to correct us, and that's fine as long as you do it nicely.
That's like... Ow, that was the middle of my freaking foot that just popped.
Ew.
Manteno.
Can we do it slow?
Manteno. Okay, so Manteno. Not Manteno.
I feel like I had heard it before, but it wasn't.
You might have heard of Manitou, the town that's closer to here. Yeah, this is up north from us. And if you guys are from that area and you do call it Manteno, I apologize.
We're trying our best.
We
I don't
are.
know.
The Manteno State Hospital was originally known as the Manteno State Mental Hospital. This place is located in Manteno Township in Kankakee County, Illinois. Kankakee
It's
is
a
just
really
really
weird
funny.
name for...
Kankakee.
I think it was like a Native American...
Probably. The psychiatric hospital was authorized in 1927 by the 55th Illinois General Assembly. Now, the reason that they even opened in the first place was because of all of the other mental hospitals in the Chicago area becoming so overcrowded. Like the first episode that we did in this, we talked about the Tinley Park Mental Health Center. I think that's what it was. But that place you saw also got overcrowded, and there were other mental hospitals in the Chicago area, and so this was built so they could send the overcrowding to this one. They were like, that's a great idea. The reason that they picked this area is because it was far away enough from Chicago and the land was still cheap. So they came out there. I don't really know how far away that is from Chicago exactly, but they were more out in the country, so the land was a lot cheaper than in the city, and you could buy like a lot of it for not as much. It's about 57 miles-ish around that area from Chicago to Kankakee. And a big plus for this area is because the interstate that went through that town was just finished. So they were like, that's an even bigger bonus because that now they can easily travel from Chicago to Kankakee County. And there's probably a train station somewhere there too, I bet. I would assume.
Construction started in 1929. The first 100 patients started coming in December of 1930 from Kankakee. One difference that sets this hospital apart from others is that Manteno used a cottage-like structure for the buildings. There were several cottages and each was named after a prominent psychologist. Kind of sounds like what schools do with presidents or like big historical figures. There was an on-site farm that was meant to help rehabilitate the patients by work therapy.
What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know how, not productive that was, but like how successful it was in rehabilitating them.
I don't know, they do that with a lot of places, where like it'll help people to be able to like take care of the horses or, you know, do something.
They're like mentally insane. I could see them killing the horses.
Well, the small asylum started with a few hundred patients, but after a while the population grew. At first this was seen as a good thing. At first. The economy was recovering from the Great Depression. The asylum brought in the opportunity for more employment.
Back then, we've talked about the Great Depression before on here. As the economy is recovering, jobs are becoming more in demand and everyone wants a job because they're like, I need money. This was a good opportunity for that area for more people to get employment and to recover financially.
Amen, sister. By the mid-1930s, the budget was reduced by half but kept expanding. This led to conditions decreasing. That's wonderful.
They built this place to get rid of the overcrowding in like Tinley Park, Chicago, all of these mental hospitals in that area, and they sent them all here. And now this place is overcrowding.
So figure something out, y'all. What are you doing?
Let's build another one.
In 1937, a tuberculosis ward was added. That was a crazy time in history. When
For real.
Tuberculosis was just like a whole big thing. It brought in hundreds of more patients, even though they didn't have the budget or the staff for it. So why are we doing it?
What are you guys doing?
So why? By the end of the 1930s, the population was well over the 5,000 person capacity limit.
That is just dangerous to begin
Fire
with.
hazard.
It is.
In 1939, the hospital suffered a typhoid epidemic. It infected 400 and killed 60.
I'm not actually surprised, since the food there was probably not prepared properly and there was not a lot of hygienic situations going on there.
So basically you get it from salmonella from food, or you get it from somebody else
It can probably spread pretty easily.
who isn't, washing their hands, or you're not washing your hands. When World War II began, things got even worse. Doctors and staff whom were skilled were taken to help with the war effort. Take all the good doctors. I understand.
Yeah, I get it.
But also,
You need to replace what
Yeah.
you took out with equal or greater.
yeah, is there any more doctors? The population didn't stop growing either. There was an extreme staffing shortage. Yeah, I'll bet there was, since you took all the doctors. In the 1950s, the asylum held over 8,000 patients, which made them the fourth largest mental asylum in the nation. And as I said earlier, the capacity limit was 5,000.
So they're 3,000 over.
They're just putting people in closets, or
Standing room only.
4 people per room? What are we doing?
Now, with everything she said going on, this led to abuse and neglect becoming so common. Patients were basically left to just fend for themselves because there was not enough staff to help every single person. So it's like, you do what you gotta do. I don't know what you want me to do. Now, this is a time where patients escaping became normal because what little staff there is left cannot watch every single person.
8,000 of them.
When the capacity is only supposed to be 5,000. Like, that's 3,000 extra that you have to account for when you don't have the doctors and the nurses and the staff there to watch.
Yeah, not only is there way over the amount of people there should be, there's way under the amount of, administration that there needs to be.
In 1941 alone, they reported almost 200 patients escaping.
That's a lot.
In 1 year, that's almost one per day.
Like every other day you've got somebody on the run.
Reports of sexual abuse in the building became public information, and it absolutely enraged the general public.
I would hope so.
Because just imagine sending your loved one to a mental hospital because they needed help and then finding out that they were molested.
Not only are the people sent here, this is not a nursing home.
No.
Some people send their young children that have mental issues. There are people of all ages in this building. It's not a nursing home,
And these are not places where it's, you are here for the rest of your life. You are supposed to be here to be rehabilitated and learn how to live with your mental disorder so you can function in public. The end game is to get you into society. But that's not how they treated it back then. They then started sending several government doctors to mental asylums all across the nation. This was not the only place where there were staffing shortages. It was nationwide is on your side. Now, these doctors' goals were to find the cure for these mental disorders. So they were like, we're gonna find a cure, it's gonna be fine. This was the beginning of electroshock therapy, an experimental procedure that took place in the 1930s. If you don't know what electroshock therapy is, it's delivering strong jolts to the brain in an attempt to control mental illness. So they'd hook it up to your head and they would literally shock you.
Electrocute your brain.
That's not good for you. Obviously, it did not work. And patients were left traumatized. Absolutely traumatized. Just imagine going through that and then having to live with that.
And also you have no say.
Yeah.
Back then, if you were in a mental institution, you did not have a say in what was going on with you.
No, like you did not have any rights. And also it can cause other things. Like there have been people who had electroshock therapy and they got epilepsy from it. Because you don't know what's going on in your brain.
You're not supposed to electrocute people's brains.
No.
I don't know why they thought that was gonna... Oh, maybe we'll just fry them.
Some suffered brain damage, neurological damage, and even heart problems. So it wasn't just affecting your brain, it can affect other parts of your body too. When World War II started, these practices became even worse. Even worse. Doctors injected malaria into unknowing patients to try and find a cure for the disease. So they were literally being treated as test puppies. No, they're like, oh, these are like mentally insane people. Let's just, who cares if they die? Like, we want to find a cure. They would try all these different kinds of experimental medicines that gave patients different and odd side effects. And then in the 1940s, the lobotomies began. If you don't know what a lobotomy is, it's when a hole is drilled into the front of the skull in an attempt to modify behavior. So they literally took a drill. Most of the time they'd stick it up your nose, and they would like take out the frontal lobe of your brain. And let me remind you, pain medicine did not exist. Anesthesia did not exist. They were doing it, they were just raw dogging it up your nose. And most of the time these people were awake. Doctors believed they were cutting out the mental illness in the brain, which they most believed it was schizophrenia and a bipolar disorder. This also didn't work. And most of the time it would just leave the patients in a vegetative state. One of the most famous lobotomies is Rose Kennedy of the Kennedy family. If you've ever heard of her, you know what I mean. If you have not, look it up. It's insane. Like, I fell down a rabbit hole of Rose Kennedy. Others were left emotionally blunted or in a blank state. And many ended up dying from this procedure, whether it be from the actual procedure or infections after. There was not a good chance of you surviving, or surviving for a long time after you got this surgery. I'm not even gonna call it a surgery, because that is not it. Lobotomies went on for years and without the knowledge or consent of the patients. So like she said, like, you did not get to consent to things. They just did it. And in 1941, over 400 patients died from all around their different experiments that they were doing on these people.
By the time the 1960s and 70s came, most patients at Manteno were the elderly alcoholics. There's a pause. The elderly
and the alcoholics
who were voluntarily committed, and the homeless from the Chicago area. They also had minimus patients. Minimus patient is a person who was too insane to go to prison, but too dangerous to be around the general public. Basically, like if they plead insanity, not sentenced to prison, but also you're very dangerous, can't just like let you...
They're not just gonna let you go walk around the streets.
Some of these patients would escape, causing people in the area to panic. Because of this, a separate, secure area was made for these patients/criminals in 1977. That's probably a good idea, honestly.
Yeah.
At least they're doing something. In 1983, state officials decided to close the Manteno State Hospital. In 1985, so this is 2 years later, the doors were officially shut. The northern half is still in use today as a Veterans Affairs facility.
That's odd how it just switched to that.
Much of the property was renovated into things like an industrial park, a golf course, and a group home for at-risk youth. The rest was left abandoned. Private companies have bought it and are now tearing the cottages down due to safety concerns.
There have been some paranormal occurrences on this property. I know that this little playlist is not all about the paranormal, but I did find some, so we're gonna talk about it.
Which is not shocking, honestly.
And this is not shocking because of everything that has happened there. Patients were left abused, they were treated like experiments, and some were literally just outright murdered. Like, they didn't consider it murder, but that's freaking murder. You cannot inject somebody with malaria and then have them die and be like, accident.
They're just abusing people, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and they're just being neglected and abused, and I could see why it would be haunted.
So this has left a dark energy surrounding the entire area. Many were buried in the cemetery, and it is said their spirits still roam the grounds. Some people see shadow people roaming around the area and in the buildings. Some have heard disembodied voices when nobody else is there, and a very common experience is feeling a strange presence following you around. And now I have some experiences on my phone. So I found these from hauntedillinoishouses.com. I love that website. I love reading about people's experiences there and their reviews of the place. This one says, grew up there. Everyone I knew was going to this place in the 90s. We went through several buildings and tunnels. It was like everyone left and left everything behind. Clothes, furniture, paperwork, books, pictures, medicine, and medical equipment, tools, you name it. Had friends take so much stuff from there. Even a barber's chair.
A grand idea.
It was the thing to do on the weekends, since we lived 15 minutes from it, in the country with nothing to do. Definitely haunted, been there dozens of times. I wish the hospital was still there. It would have fallen in by now. It was pretty damaged from everyone wanting to go. It was an awesome time.
This one was called Not Torn Down. The Manteno State Hospital was torn down in 2015. The land is now multiple houses. The state of the cemetery for the asylum is unknown. Not torn down. 28 of the buildings, as well as the administration building, are still there. 13 buildings are used for the veterans home. 15 are used by multiple businesses. Some new buildings have been built, as well as many houses. The cemetery is still there, half a mile east on 8000 North Road, but the graves were never marked, so there is only grass. All the haunted stuff is just nonsense.
This person says, creepy back then. A group of friends and I mustered up the courage to visit here probably in 2005 or so. It was definitely creepy. We heard the PA system, kind of like it glitched, or someone put a speaker in there to scare trespassers, but it definitely turned on. Only 2 of the old original buildings were still standing back then, and probably not safe. I was really amazed at the room with 4 bathtubs that a local student had turned into an art project. There was a huge story written on the wall. Didn't stay in that room long enough to read it all, but wish we had. We found the tunnel system underground. Walked for a bit and found a room full of old shoes and metal chairs in a circle. Another chair was facing the corner, and there was what looked like blood on the wall in front of it. I tell myself it was another art project. Wish I had pics. I'm sure that building is long gone by now, but it was definitely a creepy, cool experience. There was a paranormal group there as well when we were leaving that had permission to be there. They told us all of the activity they'd picked up over the years. That was cool too.
This one's called Used to Work on Their Property for a New Graphic Place. Used to work in a building on the property, a graphic arts place that they spent tons of money to make it a new building. Gosh, it was so many years ago, about 30 years ago. Yes, a new linen company opened a huge place. They had high hopes for it turning into a commercialized industrial park. I see they put houses on the property that are jammed together in one part. All of us employees would go down to the morgue and the tunnels to see all of the doctor notes in the stainless steel table down the stairs where they probably embalmed them and more. We used to check out every building and was scary. Coworkers used to bring down sticks of dynamite and blow things up in the buildings. Yes, they were crazy. All right. I haven't drove out there in 20 years, but only an hour away. Our graphics place moved to Chicago. They left a bunch of stuff in an abandoned building. Would be interesting to go see it again.
This one says, resident at Indian Oaks Academy. Saw a lady in a white dress in the hall, had friends see curtains open and things thrown, and felt someone touch me in my sleep. Saw a little girl by friend bed, and also had friends run into abandoned building. Strange things. And then this one says, been there, done that. Went with a bunch of friends several times back in the late 90s. Got some interesting photos, but nothing out of the ordinary. Lots of rotting equipment laying around, some falling apart hospital beds. Even found old fillers and a few patient records. Creepy? Maybe, but definitely sad. Loads of defilament and used condoms. Gross, people, but no ghosts.
Who's going to this abandoned insane asylum? mental asylum. Whatever they called them back in the day. To get the rocks off. Definitely haunted. Being a psychic medium, I can say there are a lot of lost and confused souls who wander the halls and grounds of this hospital. And I believe you.
I definitely believe you. And this one, the last one, says haunted without a doubt. After 1985, when the facility was abandoned, before it was filled with the balloon factory and the industrial linen cleaning factory, and before it was a mental health care for troubled teens facility, it was empty of life. As a teen during that time, I rode my bike there with friends. What they didn't mention in this article is that they did electrotherapy on patients of the mental facility. The dental-style chairs with leather tie-down straps remained at the times of my visits. Also, beds with restraints were still present. Green institutional paint cracking and reaching away from the walls. Paper littered the floors as if everyone left in a hurry and nobody returned. The deeper depths of the building revealed something much more surprising and unnerving than I could anticipate. One adventurous night in my teenage years, a couple friends and myself rode our bikes to the facility in the middle of the night. We wanted to explore an underground tunnel that was accessible from inside a building we knew of from a previous visit. We had flashlights this time, and we were prepared to see what lay within. We made our way to the basement of the building, carefully walking over tattered clothes, broken glass, and toppled furniture. The bottom of the staircase revealed a tunnel about 7 feet in diameter and about 15 feet in length, ending with a door. We spent the next 20 minutes attempting to kick, pry, and force the door open before one of us geniuses found a way to pop the hinges off. We entered the threshold to find what seemed like a never-ending tunnel. There were a thin line of tracks, as if they moved some small carts through the tunnel. We walked for about 50 yards, then came to an intersection. We stopped there to regroup and decide how we would progress. After choosing a direction, we moved forward cautiously. We went on for what seemed like a quarter mile. That is when it happened. We heard some extra shifting as we were walking, like an added set of dragging footsteps. We had dead silence. Was it all in our heads? Then it happened. A light flickered on in front of us about 100 feet away. I don't know which happened first, the light or ours dying, but both flashlights dimmed to almost nothing simultaneously. We all seen the light ahead and I yelled, "Hey!" We got nothing in return. It looked like it was slowly moving towards us. We all got scared and started to run in the dark back for the entrance. Like a gust of wind, the three of us were knocked forward and to the ground. It felt as if we tripped over each other, but we weren't touching. We stood up and ran for our lives. We made it to the tunnel doorway and ran through the building without further incident. Getting on our bikes and getting to my friend's house, we all knew that death was at our doorstep, and we barely escaped its grip. Death, is that you?
He's calling.
So that was this episode of Local Mysteries of the Unknown. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've ever been there, let us know, because we'll never go there because it's torn down.
We're a little late on the draw there.
A little late, but probably for the best. Let us know if there's anything else you want us to cover. Any local mysteries that you guys have in your little area. If you live in a big area or a small area. Or if you live up someone's ass crack. I don't know, let me know. But if you liked this, like and comment, subscribe. We will see you guys next time for another spooky video. We don't know what it'll be, and you'll be surprised just like us. Okay, bye!